fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From A to Arbitration. I got my main man, Mr. Tyler Vasseur with Build A Fighting NALC. He's on with me, been on several times. I was wanting to get him on last night. It took me forever to get home. And when I got home, Sheriff had a room full of people, got them on, and Tyler said, "Man, it's 8 o'clock. It's past my bedtime, and so I need to go to bed."
That's
And
right.
so I thought I would get him today, but I wanted specifically to reach out to Tyler because I know with Build a Fighting NELC that movement is growing by leaps and bounds, but they had some very strong positions on this tentative agreement. And they had some very strong positions on things that they said we needed. And I'm going to let him discuss all of that. Everybody knows my position. I think that this tentative agreement was a pile of shit. And but I'm going to let Tyler just have it, man. You speak as long as you want to speak. And I'm not going to ask any questions unless something pops up. So, my man, it's all yours. Okay, Tyler?
All right, appreciate it. How you doing, Corey? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, I wanted you to be fresh. I wanted you to get some rest. So, and it sounds like you had a long night based on the episodes I listened to today. So this isn't news to anyone listening to this podcast, but there's no way to put it other than that this is a sellout contract. It's about as bad as we could have imagined. The only thing historic about this contract is how bad it is. And that's not news to anyone listening to this. It was discussed yesterday, the episodes that came out today. But the only thing historic, again, it's how bad it is, how it doesn't keep up with wages ahead of inflation, doesn't even keep wages with inflation, how it doesn't reflect the historically strong positions of unions and workers, coming out of the pandemic in this job market. And so for that reason, Build A Fighting NALC, BFN, is calling for a no vote. And we're calling for a contract that has a $30 an hour starting wage and raises for all steps in line with that. Top pay comparable to UPS. We think we should cut the time to top pay from 13 to 6. If you look in the postal record, that's something that is an official position of NALC that was passed at a convention. We want full COLAs, not diet COLAs. 100% COLAs for all steps like the APWU has, and an end to mandatory overtime. There's obviously more to this, and these demands mostly reflect the economic side, but I think that's the part a lot of the members are thinking about right now. Before I get into that more, though, I want to talk about how BFN has grown and developed over the last 10 months or so, last year since that first interview we did last winter, how the overall reform movement has grown, CLC, Mike Cariff's campaign, the hundreds, if not thousands of unaffiliated, reform-minded NALC members who kind of are looking at all of it and supporting it all. For all of 2024, going into the national convention we had this past August, there were carriers across the country fighting for open bargaining. I can't remember the exact number. It was something like 30 or 40 branches passed some version of open bargaining. Like you've said, it was for this exact reason. Not only did we think we needed more transparency, but also that we needed a real contract campaign. Transparency so that members could actually know what we're fighting for, right? Radical idea. And a real contract campaign so that we could actually build real power and leverage in negotiations. It was through that process it became clear there's a deeper issue here and that a more ongoing organizing effort is necessary. And so Build A Fighting NALC was launched officially as a rank and file reform movement, something that we want to build in the years to come, that I want to launch at some point as an official caucus within NALC. And BFN, it was launched exactly for a moment like this. One of the points, I want to say this and I want to hear some of your thoughts, but one of the points on the BFN program, one of the central points of our program is the right to strike. And again, fighting for the right to strike. NALC needs to move to abolish the no strike clause from our contract and fight for the federal ban to be lifted. I think we could build a real campaign with the other postal unions, with other federal workers. And it's exactly a moment like this that we need that. Strike action is a basic democratic right for workers, a basic democratic right we're currently denied. If you ask, why would we need the right to strike? This is the exact time, the exact reason we need the right. And if you're in negotiations, just give you an example. If you're in negotiations and management will not budge, they refuse to give wage increases and working conditions demanded by the members, needed by the members, that's when strike action is necessary and powerful, for the ultimate form of leverage. If your own union leadership sells you out with a bad contract, that's when strike action is necessary. This is why BFN is fighting for the right to strike in the months and the years to come. So yeah, I don't know what you think about all that, but I've got a lot more to say, but I think has become really clear to me. And I think more and more people are thinking about these things since that TA.
I'm just gonna write things down as you're talking, my brother. And then when
Sure.
you finish, I'm gonna come back to some things and we'll discuss it. All right.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I don't have much
Yeah.
more. I
No, that's
kind of
fine.
wrote up some thoughts here just the other day before we started. So, I mean, for all of these reasons, BFN is launching a Vote No campaign. I think there's a lot short of strike action that NELC members can do to fight for a stronger contract. There's a lot that we can do. That's why we're launching a Vote No campaign. We can't rely, well, I'll get into that in a second. The campaign is going to be launched out of a Zoom meeting next Sunday. So this coming Sunday, October 27th. It's going to be happening at noon Central Time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Just like we've been doing it, the handful of meetings we did over the last year. And, there's a lot of momentum out of that initial burst of anger and energy, anger and frustration when the TA was first announced. But I don't think we can rely on momentum alone. We need to organize a real campaign. I mean, we're seeing what's happening right now with the Committee of Presidents, these rap sessions that are happening. They're going to be whipping votes for this contract. They're going to be finding every way to argue for why we should accept this absolute disaster of a contract, this garbage contract. But they're going to, and they're going to whittle people down. And we also have to, think about there's going to be a lot of people that will quietly vote yes unless we have those conversations, unless we have a real campaign, which I'll get into in a second of what that will look like. Because I think a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, I don't think we can get anything better. I just need my back pay. I don't trust the national leadership to be able to organize a real contract campaign. So we need to have these conversations with people about, why we need to vote no and why we can get better. We're going to have speakers on Sunday, obviously from BFN. We're going to have speakers from CLC, from CAREF's campaign, all calling for a no vote. That's fantastic. We need maximum unity in this sort of broad coalition to vote no. I think the Houston rap session's happening at the same time. So unfortunately, I don't believe James Henry or Mike Caref will be able to speak themselves, but we'll have people there that will be speaking sort of on their behalf and for the different groups. I think it's really important that we have everyone who supports a no vote to get behind a vote no campaign itself. Again, can't just rely on momentum. And I think this is really important that if you're a supporter of CLC, if you're a supporter of CAREF, I think get behind this campaign. CLC has something like a couple hundred endorsements, right? I mean, if just putting the call on the people who've endorsed the slate, hey, listen, the best way to fight for CLC in the 2026 campaign, the best way to fight for that now is to get behind this vote no campaign and send a real message. I think we can win a no vote. It's not automatic, but I think at this moment we can win a no vote. It's a question of how much. And what I've been talking to people at my station, I gave a stand-up I said it's not, it's a question of how much we win a no vote by, and I think we got to send a real message. I don't want to win with a 55% no vote. I want a 75, 80% no vote. Imagine the power of calling all these supporters of BFN, of CLC, of CAREF's campaign to get behind a vote no campaign. Don't just quietly vote no. Don't just have a conversation with your one or two really close friends at work, but really campaign to get these ideas out to the members and have these conversations. So again, more info is going to be coming at that Sunday meeting. I really want to encourage everyone to go there. We already have over 200, almost 250 registered. We still have to reach out, send me emails to our email list. I know Caref said he's going to help with that, but I'm expecting a good crowd. We're going to have flyers. We're going to have vote no materials for NELC members to flyer their stations, their branches, their union meetings. Really importantly, it's not just going to be, here's the material, go at it. We're going to actually say, we're going to have at least one, maybe more, national day of vote no national days of action, where on the same day everywhere, NELC members will have the flyers and will be flyering outside of their stations before the shift. In the garages or in the parking lots or on the sidewalk. And we want to encourage people to go out in groups, take photos, share them online, share them with us so that we can share them from the BFN social media and give people a sense of how much this is a national movement, because I think that is the best way that we can build momentum behind this. I want to address also, the concerns about arbitration that people have, and that's going to be one of the biggest tools at the sort of the leadership and the sort of ass kissers will use in pushing back against a no vote. They'll say, well, we can lose everything in arbitration. Well, I mean, first of all, come on, we got to at least put up a fight. And it can't get much worse than what we got right now, that's for sure. And our slogan, BFN, is not just vote no and hope for the best. Our slogan is vote no and organize a real contract campaign. We vote down the contract and we bring it to arbitration. We need a real campaign to fight for a strong contract. On October 14th, we had something like 20 rallies across the country. It was great, but if it goes to arbitration, we need 10 times that amount. We need hundreds of rallies on the same day with real demands to get the media attention, to get the public, the arbitrators, our negotiators to know why we voted no and what we demand, what kind of contract we need. That would make a real impact, and it's escalating actions like that and more that will win us the contract that we need. Not just saying send it to arbitration and hope for the best. No, we send it to arbitration, and that's where public pressure will play a real big role, And so again, BFN's contract demands, just want to highlight this again, $30 an hour starting wage and raises for all steps in line with that. Top pay comparable to UPS. Cut the top pay from 13 to 6 years, which is an official position of NELC. Full colas, not diet colas, 100% colas for all steps, and an end to mandatory overtime. And again, that those should be on signs. Other demands will be on signs. I've heard people say something like 1.3% makes me sick. And 1.3% is a slap in the face. Take your 1.3% and shove it. Anything like this can really get our message across. And then last thing I want to say, that some little notes that I've taken, and then we can kind of open it up and just have a conversation, is I want to tell people, don't quit. Get organized to build a fighting NALC. To all the members who want to quit the post office or leave the union, as much as I understand where that anger and frustration is coming from, it's not the answer. I mean, we don't live in a world. I hate the line of, oh, if you don't like it, quit and get another job. No, I like my job, actually. I don't like being pushed around. I don't like being bullied. I don't like being not paid what I'm worth and what me and my brothers and sisters are worth. But we have a union for a reason. It's to fight to change that. And so I think we don't just leave and try to find another job where you're going to be stuck in a similar process of inflation, cutting away your wages, and lack of representation. We can fight to transform the union. We can fight to vote no and fight for a better contract. And so, that's why, again, BFN's calling on NELC members, don't quit, get organized to fight for a strong contract, to vote no, and to transform NELC. And last thing here, a lot of people have been asking what the next steps are for BFN, how they can join, how they can start a chapter. We're still really in the beginning stages. Again, we just came out of a real organized to fight for open bargaining, going to the convention. And then coming out of the convention, there was a real question of what do we do next? And a lot was riding on what happens with this TA. And I think if you're interested, this has shown me that we clearly need an ongoing reform movement within this union of rank and file members of, across the country. The best thing you can do now is to join the Vote No campaign, organize your coworkers to vote no, flyer your station with another carrier or several other carriers, organize other stations your branch represents to flyer for the Vote No campaign on the National Day of Action. And that's going to be the best way that you can find those other people that do want to organize to transform the union in the months and years to come. And so, I think that's, if there's one silver lining out of all of this, is it just more and more people are being, the national leadership's sorry sort of position on how they think the union is supposed to run is being exposed to more and more people. This is a bit anecdotal, but I've been reached out to by several people who said, hey, Tyler, I was at the convention. I heard you speak. You spoke with conviction. I wasn't convinced at the time that open bargaining was the right move. But now this terrible TA has proven to me that that was correct, that we do need a change of direction. And so that gives me a lot of hope. While some people will sort of hear a good idea and maybe for their own life through their own life experiences, it will connect with them. For other people, it's bigger events that will sort of shift their ideas and their thinking. And so I think you'll be surprised how many people will be open to transforming the union, getting involved because of how much the current approach has been exposed to them. So yeah, that's what I got at least written down. So
Yeah. Well, Tyler, I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of yours. I think that it's an embarrassment, Tyler, that we have to have, and I say this everywhere I go. You heard it at the convention when I was talking to everybody with the CLC. It's an embarrassment that we have to have a movement called Build a Fighting NALC.
Yeah.
I think the NALC should be embarrassed about that because it tells everybody, it shows everybody what a disgrace we've become as a union. I think that you burst onto the scene at the national convention. You've been on here a lot of times. We've been on those Zoom meetings on Sundays, but I think that convention it opened a lot of people's eyes. First off, how you conducted yourself up there amongst, they sent down business agent after business agent after business agent. You stood in the face of that, and I respect the hell out of that. But you see now that this has come out, why they did that. There was not a chance in hell that the city letter carrier was going to be made aware of what we were asking for
Yeah.
in our collective bargaining. There's no chance in hell because Tyler is talking about the 1.3. That was the running joke. Everybody get ready for the 1.3. We're playing with that, joking with that. Well, here we are, 1.3. But I think that you burst onto the scene at the convention. A lot of people, stood up and recognized this is a legitimate movement. The Postal Service last year, their revenue was 78.4 billion. That was the revenue. Their expenses were 85.4 billion. Do you know where that money went?
Not sure. I mean, yeah,
Me neither.
it's a good
I
question.
I, I
I
don't
know
know
they're
it.
paying out. I know they're paying out millions in grievance, or how much are they paying out in grievances because their
Yeah,
management can't follow the contract? That's
yeah,
one major expense. That's for sure.
yeah. But you're talking about $78.4 billion in revenue, and we have expenses of 85.4. I don't know if you listened to me talking with Mr. Henry, Mr. Cariff, but I would love to get in those books.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
if we go to national arbitration, if we take this to interest arbitration, we'd get in those books. I want to know
Mhm.
what you're spending that money on. There's no way possible that we have spent 85.4 billion legitimately. The fat, we talk about the fat all the time. And I loved what you said earlier. Uh, what have y'all done to cut cost? What have y'all? Let's look at y'all first, and then we'll look at us. But let's get in y'all's books. Let's look at where this 85.4 billion went, and
Mhm.
let's expose that. When you're talking about striking, and there's so much stuff that's when you said, there's so much stuff we could be doing right now, other than that we don't do. When you look at the Wildcat strike back in 1970, there's so many things that we have in our advantage now that they did not have back then as far as social media.
Mhm.
How many news agencies do we have now? They had channel 2, 4, and 5 back then. They're not going to be all over the news. They could be on a newspaper, but you look at all the avenues we have today to get our message out there, and we have an NALC that is incapable of doing that. They're
Mhm.
incapable of getting us in the street to say, here's our plight, here's our issues. We made 78 billion last year, and we have spent 85 billion. We have lost 500 million in grievance payouts because management is incapable of following the contract. I just made that number up. I don't know if that's right or not, but
Okay, it's
it
high. I
sounded
know it's got to be a lot.
it sounded like a good number. But there's so many things that we could be doing that we're not, and that's the reason I love your movement. You are militant, which I absolutely love. The more militant, the better to me,
Mhm.
because I care about one thing and one thing only. The city letter carrier. I don't care about the postal service and what they think about me. I really don't. I don't give a shit about what they think about me, what I'm doing, as long as everything I'm doing is doing it for the city letter carrier.
That's right.
You talk about you want a $30 starting wage, right? And Mr. Cariff, and I think Mr. Henry as well, were talking about the starting pay for APW is $27. Do you think that we do $3 more an hour work than the APW? I do.
Yeah, I mean, just on that note itself, I just think we have so much more to gain from standing together than we do apart, because I get what you're saying, but the Postal Service uses that to sort of divide and conquer. And, I just think that, okay, we've got with this TA, what would starting wages get up to by the end of the contract? 25, something like that? Or is it 20?
24 something, ain't it?
24. And APW is at 27. I think the way to get across that, rather than asking the question of is their labor worth $3 more than ours? I think together, if we stand together, we bargain together, we fight together, what are we worth and what could we win if we stand together? I think that would put us in a much better position to fight for $30 an hour starting wage for clerks and for carriers. That makes sense.
Well,
but I wanted to answer some of the things that you were saying, like first starting with the postal finances. I mean, first of all, the part of DeJoy's 10-year plan, even if you're just looking at it from purely a managerial perspective, you'd think that workforce stabilization would be part of that plan. Maybe it is. I've read the Eagle that they send out every once in a while, but I can't stomach most of it, but the fluff in most of it. But you'd think, even from the managerial perspective, that workforce stabilization, fully staffed stations, happy carriers, you'd think that they would, even from their perspective, their purely selfish perspective, that they would want that as a part of the service. And so you'd think that they would look for ways to, I don't know, in some ways, find better, find ways to get better wages for carriers or something. But that's clearly not what not what they're looking at. They're looking at the lowest common denominator, the lowest amount they can pay, while still people still making enough to just eke out an existence. But because I say that all because I think the public can get behind us making the case that we deserve in this country, we deserve a fully functioning, high quality public postal service. Everyone deserves, as deliveries become more and more important to the economy and to daily life in this world, in this modern world, we need a public postal service as a part of that. You better believe if there wasn't a public postal service, that UPS and FedEx and Amazon, all of them would be charging way more for deliveries. Having a public postal service forces these carriers to not just charge as much as they possibly want, because we're there to sort of help stabilize that. But I totally agree with the idea of opening the books. I know that it's obviously a public institution to some degree, and so that there is information that gets sent out to people about, or that gets put out there about postal finances. But I think we got to do a deep dive into that. What is the administrative cost? Because, and that's something not just for this one contract, but for this overall reform effort going forward. They're going, unless we find, and it looks like we're going to have to help them find ways to increase revenue. But until revenue is increased, they will always use, we're losing billions of dollars against us, to say, accept no matter what. And just on that note, it drives me crazy when you see online people saying, this looks like a pretty good contract to me for a company that loses billions of dollars a year. If that is your logic, why do we even have collective bargaining? Why wouldn't we just accept what the which is what this contract looks like? Why wouldn't we just accept what the Postal Service is getting us? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I see that. They just say that. I see that a lot on, and I don't know if it's management that's infiltrated these social media sites that are like, we should be thankful we're even getting 1.3 for a company that's losing billions of dollars. That reminds me of what you said earlier about people that say, why don't you just quit and go somewhere else? It's the ultimate cowardly answer that, hey, we're not going to fight for anything better than what we've got. So we're just going to sit here and work in shit. And if you don't like working in shit, just go quit and go work somewhere else. No, I want to fight for better working conditions. I want to
Mhm.
fight my ass off for better pay. I want to fight my ass off to make sure that my carriers come in every day in a stress-free environment. And to say, well, if you don't like it, just quit and go somewhere else. It's the ultimate cowardly response. And it's part of the reason our union is suffering now is because we have people like that in positions of leadership, whether it be
Mhm.
stewards, branch presidents, or whatnot. But you were talking about something else earlier, uh, the COP.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you heard, but you know, most of those branch presidents at the COP stood up and gave Renfro a round of applause. And so, and then,
Unbelievable,
here,
honestly.
it, well, what do you do? You know what I'm saying? You are obviously so out of touch
Mhm.
with the city letter carrier. If you stand up and give this clown a round of applause for this tentative agreement, you have no pulse, or you don't understand the pulse of the city letter carrier. But then you see the business agents coming out with here's your package. Who could be upset at that? RAA's coming out,
Mhm.
here's your package. Who could be upset at that? So you're right. They're going to get out there, vote yes for it. We have got to be overwhelming in our position to vote no for it.
Mhm.
You talk about 75%. I would love that. I would love for the city letter carrier to stand up. Eventually, we're going to have to. In 2026, we're going to have to stand up and vote in the new regime.
Mhm.
This would be a good starting place to stand up and say, look, let's go fight. Let's go fight. This tentative agreement is is full of cowardice and concession. Let's go fight, win or lose. Let's take this thing to national arbitration, interest arbitration, and lay everything out on the table and live with what we get. I'd rather do that than just concede my ass away.
Absolutely agree. And I just want to say, like, I mean, look at the Boeing workers. Look at what they were given, after I think they went like 10 years they got a contract extension. I mean, it's been a disaster for a long time for the machinists there at Boeing, but they voted down multiple TAs. First offered 20%, they voted that down, then offered 25%, voted that down, stayed on strike, and now they're winning 35% raises. And for all the people that want to say, oh, that's the private sector, that's the private sector, I don't care. These lessons still apply across unions. And and there are plenty of examples of public sector unions putting up a fight and winning. We have collective bargaining for a reason. I also want to highlight, I think it was a Cariff that highlighted the 1978. I think that was the last time a TA was voted down. The 1978 contract. It was voted down over, it was related to COLAs, it was related to the attempt to implement a two-tier wage scale. And they voted that down, and they did the informational pickets, they did a real national contract campaign, and guess what? They won a better contract than they were originally offered. And then just the idea of, so I forgot to mention this, that these raises, I mean, we're seeing all sorts of crazy stuff. Brent Renfro's coming out and saying, "Oh, by the end of the contract, this will amount to 20% raises." Well, no, I mean, moving up on the pay scale and the colas, those were already built in. You can't add 3.9% on top of that and then try to say that you secured us a 20% raise. The other thing to keep in mind. So first of all, before I get into this, the colas are a significant gain and win for NELC. It was won in the 70s out of struggle after the strike, in their own inflationary times. NELC fought for and won cost of living adjustments. And we've maintained those colas up until now. That comes from a historical fight and a historical struggle within our own union. But as they stand right now, unless it's 100% across all steps, it's first of all, it's an unequal. But the other thing is our colas. So if you're getting high cola payouts, it's because inflation is high, and our colas are not 1-to-1 with inflation. If inflation's 8%, we're not getting an 8% raise. I've seen people do the calculations at the top scale. It's roughly about half of what inflation is you get in colas. Hey, that's fantastic. That's better than nothing. That comes from our union organizing and fighting in the past. But as it stands now, if you're lower on the pay scale, not only you're not only are you not getting one-to-one with inflation in terms of a cost of living adjustment, you're getting a fraction of our formula. And so it's just, if you rely on, look at how much money I'll be making by the end of this contract because of all these COLA adjustments, that's because inflation is high. And if just because, yeah, you could make $1 a year more from a contract, the raise can be 1% a year and you're technically making more money than the year before. But if you don't factor into inflation, then it's not the full picture. And right now, these raises, and I'd say that with sort of emphasis, they amount to a pay cut. And I think that it's just not acceptable. And I think we must fight for more. We can fight for more. We can win more.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I think Mr. Noble, when he came on, talked about that with the COLA. It's like it doesn't meet inflation. You're getting a percentage of that. You're still not up equal with inflation with the COLA. And so when people are like, we got these COLAs, they're fantastic, like you said, but don't fool yourself. We're still not up even with inflation. And so I think that when you're talking about other unions and they're, public, private, and all these things here, I think it's even more responsible for us to get in those books because this is a federal government job. And anybody knows anything about federal government, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of fat. Even though we're self-sustaining, we don't receive any tax money. Even though we're self-sustaining, there's a lot of fat in the Postal Service. I say get in those books. Get in those books. Pay however much you have to pay these attorneys. I'd fire all the ones we've got that've been doing our collective bargaining over the years. I think they've gotten complacent and stale. Go out and get somebody like NFL or pro baseball or whoever does theirs. Hire them. Do whatever you got to do. Spend however much money you've got to spend. Get in those books and find that waste, and then say, here's a company that made 78.4 billion. And 11 billion of that is wasted away on too much management. We don't need the same amount of management as we had back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s early. We don't need that. Obviously, we agree with that because we have a president that's changing our time standards and everything like that because of how we've, talking about the fixed office time like that because of changing time. So I say get in those books, man. If we go into interest arbitration, I want to get in those books and
That's
find
right.
that money and give that money to the people that do the work.
I agree. And I mean, Corey, I think this raises a real question of, I know people are pretty proud of the fact we don't take any tax dollars, rely exclusively on stamps and postage. I think if we live in a society that thinks it's good that we have a public postal service, and I personally think it is, I think it does. The majority of Americans think it's important. I think it raises a real question. If the postal service can't function, can't fund itself, maybe we should be funded in part by tax dollars. That's a real conversation that needs to be had. And I think it is worth it. And I think the public would support that. I think, again, the point I was making of like, without the postal service, you better believe deliveries would be much more expensive because with the postal service being relatively affordable, it keeps prices down at these other delivery companies to some degree.
Well, that would bring a little more oversight, and maybe we would need that,
Yeah.
to check our spending. But Tyler, the Postal Service is the center of it's either a $7 or $9 trillion mailing industry. That's what the Postal Service is the center of. And just think of that. $7 to $9 trillion mailing industry, and the Postal Service is the center of that. You've got to play on that to the public. You've got to say, this is how important. And the public loves the Postal Service anyway. They love the city letter carrier. They love us being out there. It's not going to be a hard sell to say, here's what the Postal Service does. We're the center of a $9 trillion mailing industry. They know what we bring to them and stuff. But right now, we're in a time to the public that our working conditions aren't such that we can provide for our families. We work for a service that doesn't appreciate what we do. We know you do as the public. We have lost however many $6 billion based off of what? And just the hell, when talking about the strike, that's what we have going for us now is that we have all these social media platforms. We have 800 new news channels and everything, people wanting to reach out to us and talk to us. Of course, Renfro and Barner, they have this don't talk to anybody outside you know, I don't know what that's about. To me, I think you should be talking to anybody and everybody that wants to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're dropping the ball. And that's the reason I love y'all's movement is because y'all are out in the street. You're the exact opposite of what Renfro is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we want to bring awareness to what's going on at the Postal Service. We want the public to know what's going on here. And so I love that about y'all because y'all are saying we're not doing what y'all are doing. We're going to be out in the street, bringing the awareness to the public. I think it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm behind y'all's movement 110%.
I
And
appreciate that, Corey.
I hope y'all keep growing. Is there anything that I can put on? You're talking about this, what y'all have coming up Sunday. How can people get on there? How can we find that if we want to do that?
Yeah, if you can share out on social media, I think you could even put it in the description of this episode, the link to register for the Zoom meeting. I think some people get confused and they think it's the link to click the day of. No, you click it and you can register, and then they send you an email with the link the day of.
Can you send me that?
I can send you that. If people can register, share that with one or two people at your station. Share it with your entire station. I'm going to make an announcement at tomorrow's stand-up and say, hey, forgot to announce it today at today's stand-up. There's a lot to talk about because the TA came out after most people had left on Saturday. And so today was the day that we did a whole stand-up. Invite people from your station. If people are pissed off, again, we can't rely on momentum alone. And so I would say, yeah, if you could share that. We also have a revamped website. The Build A Fighting NALC.com domain was taken, so it's just fightingnalc.com. I'll share that with you if you can share that. We'll have materials going up there. The Zoom link, different interviews. I think that's the biggest thing. I just want to say two last things here. I think this is a real moment of reckoning. And I've been thinking about that sort of phrase for a long time. I think it was either Carriff or James Henry also said that same thing. We're in a moment of reckoning in NALC. And I think we can look to other unions and how they've been transformed in the last few years for inspiration. A lot of people think about the United Auto Workers and their stand-up strike in the fall of 2023. After decades of decline in the auto industry, decades of decline and power of the union, in 2018 or 2019, there were a handful of members of the national leadership of the United Auto Workers who got sent to prison because they were accepting bribes from the company. They were taking kickbacks from the company in order to sell concessionary contracts to their members. And a reform caucus, the United Auto Workers for Democracy, the UAWD, within the UAW, they got organized. They got their guy Sean Fain elected. And then 6 months later, Sean Fain and the United Auto Workers went out on strike and won historic contracts, 25% wage increases. And now they're organizing the auto plants in the South. And they're really on the cutting edge of the new American labor movement. And I think we have a lot to learn from them. We're entering our own moment of reckoning. What are people going to do? A 500 plus days without a contract, no substantive updates, no transparency, no fight. Nothing, no call for us to go into the streets and bring the fight to the public. We fought for open bargaining. We won some watered down versions, but we won some open bargaining. They didn't implement that. And now when the TA finally comes out, a slap in the face, absolute garbage contract. And members are waking up. Members are pissed off. Some are trying to tune out. We can't let despair set in. We got to get organized. And so just to say, again, we can't rely on momentum. We need to build a vote no campaign. And the best place to get involved with that is to join the Zoom meeting on Sunday, October 27th. And the link will be in the description. And then ultimately, I think I would appeal to people to join Build A Fighting NALC. Start a chapter in your area. And the best place to start is to campaign for a no vote and bring some people around you. Maybe it's just one or two people to start with, but you can grow from there. And I think ultimately in the months and the years to come, building BFN into a real national movement with strong chapters across the country will be the best way for us to fight for a no vote and a strong contract, and to fight to transform the union in the years to come.
My brother, I'm with you, my man.
I
I'm with you.
appreciate that.
Hey, I think the world of you. You're more than welcome whenever you want to come on, brother. You can come on. I just know that you
I
have to
appreciate
come
that,
on
brother.
before 8 o'clock, right? Because
All
your
right.
bedtime.
Yeah. Yeah. There was it was a long day yesterday. So normally I can do after 8, but I had to make an executive decision there. But I appreciate you having me on, and I'll share that info with you. And I want everyone to come on out, and let's build a real Vote No campaign. Let's fight for more, because we can't do much worse than this, and I think we can do a whole hell of a lot better.
I got you, my man. I thank you, Tyler. Send me that stuff and I'll put it up for you. All right, brother.
All right, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, my man. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, it stopped. Sounds good, man. You did good.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks again for
I'll
having
have
me
it.
on.
Hey,
This has
absolutely. I'll
been
have this up in 10 minutes.
That's great. I had a lot of people asking me, "Hey, I thought you were supposed to be on."
But send me that link and I'm
You
gonna
want me to
try to
email it
put
to you? Is it best if
yeah,
I email?
email it to me, and that way I can copy that and try to put it on the like you said on that. I've never done that before, so
I think you can put it
but
right in the description. And if you could put the
yeah.
website in the description as well, and then if you could post it on Facebook, I mean, I'd really appreciate
Yeah,
that. That would be
I'll put it. I know how to put it on all of that. I'll just
great.
have to figure out. So you're fightingnalc.com.
That's right. I'll share that. I'll send that over to you as well right now
Okay,
with the link, the registration link. I'll send them both
I
back
got
to
you.
back. We've already gotten, close to 250 registrations, and we've barely done anything to build it. So I think
Well,
anything we can
hopefully
do,
this will help. Hopefully this will help you a little bit.
I definitely will. All right.
All
All
right,
right,
my
Corey. I
man. I
appreciate it.
appreciate you, Tyler. Take care, brother.
Take care, brother. Bye bye.
See you, bud.